Welcome back in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. You can catch up on everything over there. You can also listen to the show live. All of the shows live here on KDUS AM 1060. Well, when the Cardinals are not in the playoffs, I tend to watch these games through the lens of what are they missing that the teams that are playing have, right? What is the difference between the teams that are moving on, the teams that are playing in the Final Four next week in Conference Championship Week that the Cardinals don't have? And I'll tell you what, sitting back, relaxing on Saturday, relaxing on Sunday, watching these games, not stressed, right? No stress watching these games. Don't have a rooting interest, so you're just sitting back, relaxing the good football, and you're thinking about the stress that everybody else has. And it was pretty clear what all those teams that are moving on did well yesterday. Let's look at all four losers from this weekend. Houston. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 19 of 41 dropbacks. He was sacked 8 times. Detroit. Jared Goff got sacked twice, threw 3 interceptions, all because of pressure. The Rams. Stafford sacked 5 times. The Bills only got to Lamar twice in the game, but pressure forced him out of the pocket a bunch. Pressure. You saw it. How did the Chiefs slow down Stroud? Got to him. Pressure. How did the Commanders pull off the upset? Pressure, and they pressured Goff directly into turnovers. 3 interceptions. How did the Eagles slow down Stafford and the Rams offense? 5 sacks. That's the name of the game. Pressure. What did the Cardinals not have a lot of in 2024? Oh, that's right. Pressure. Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Max Crosby? Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Myles Garrett? Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Micah Parsons potentially coming to Arizona and the Cardinals making the big swing this offseason? Because pressure wins. You want to beat the elite of the elite quarterbacks? You want to go on a deep run in the postseason? What do you have to do? You got to make them uncomfortable. You have to make these opposing quarterbacks feel it. Get them off platform. Get them out of the pocket. Get some pressure. Make the plays break down. You know how you neutralize a great offensive coordinator that has a great play call drawn up? You get pressure. You blow up a play before it can even develop. Before the quarterback can go through the progressions and get to the reads and find the mismatch that they've created, if you have the right pressure, if you have the right guys getting after the quarterback, you can stop any great play call. You can stop the Ben Johnsons of the world. You can stop the Bobby Slowicks of the world. You can stop the Sean McVays of the world. Those are 3 of the great offensive minds. Todd Monken. Those are the 4 guys calling plays this weekend for those 4 teams. Do you want to know how you slow those guys down? It's not because you play the chess match and you also call a great coverage. You get pressure. And it doesn't have to be always sacks. You don't have to lead the league in sacks, but you have to get pressure. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 19 of his 41 dropbacks. Do you think that impacted the other 20 or so dropbacks where he's thinking about it because he's been pressured so much that he can't stay in the pocket, that it's not clean, that he can't get through his progressions because he's got to step up or step out or extend a play or a play breaks down, whatever the case may be? You don't think he's thinking about those 19 times, the other 20 or so times? You don't think that enters his thought process? You don't think it throws off the play calling for Bobby Slowick? Oh, well, we've been pressured a bunch. We can't protect. And it changes what plays are available to you. It changes how you call a game. Pressure. Why do you think I've been pushing so hard for this team to not wait until April to address their edge? It's not just because it's a 5-pillar position. It's because you need impact players. You need stars. And you might find a star in April. You might find a star in the middle of the first round when you pick. I'd rather get the sure thing. I'd rather get the bona fide slam dunk defensive player of the year candidate at pass rush. That's what I'd rather do than leave it up to chance that one, a player falls to me in the middle of the first round. You're not picking in the top 3 or 4. You're picking in the middle of the first round. So I got to have a player that I like who I think is a star at that position fall to me. But then I also need that production right away. We know the pressure that this team's going to be under to produce in 2025. It's playoffs or bust, baby. This team needs to be in the playoffs next year. That's the standard. And so you can't leave it up to chance. These teams that played this weekend didn't leave it up to chance. These teams have drafted, developed, signed players all across the board. They have done the hard work. The Cardinals have to also do that hard work. And that's not to say you don't draft somebody. We make that very clear. You can still draft somebody in the first or second round. But you need a bona fide stud. We're going to go game by game here, okay? So join me on this journey. You need a Chris Jones. You need a George Karlaftis. Now, you may say, hey, Chris, they drafted those guys. George Karlaftis was drafted. I agree. But you need your immediate stud now. How about Washington and the pressure that they got? How about having a Dorrance Armstrong who had 2 sacks in the game? How about having that guy? Let's look at Philly. Philly, that's a draft and develop team, so that's a check in that box if you want it. They've spent so much draft capital. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, all across the board. But those guys are already producing. It took those guys a couple of years. It took Jalen Carter. It took Nolan Smith a couple of years to produce, to be what they were on Saturday. You can't afford that. Buffalo. Greg Rousseau. Ed Oliver. Von Miller paroling around on defense. Some of those guys from Buffalo. Some of those guys are drafted and developed. Some of those guys aren't. You can do both, but you can't afford to wait for the development because you have, let's face it, you have nothing. And the reason why these teams won this past weekend is because they were able to get pressure, either with their guys that they drafted and developed. And so you're hoping that Darius Robinson is that guy for you. You're hoping Darius Robinson is that draft and develop guy that when he enters year 2 now, you see that jump. So he is your Jalen Carter. He is your Nolan Smith. He is your Greg Rousseau. He is your George Karlaftis. That's what you're hoping. But then you also need the stud. You need your Chris Jones. You need your Von Miller, although maybe not this year, Von Miller. You need your stud. You need your guy that you know is good for a double-digit sack season. That's what this team is missing. So you watched it, and you're going to watch it again on Sunday, and you're going to watch the teams that win these games, that are going to the Super Bowl representing the AFC and the NFC. The reason why, they're the team that can get the sustained pressure and get after the quarterback. That's the takeaway. So we can talk about T. Higgins. We can talk about getting a corner. We can talk like we did last week about the interior of this offensive line being in disarray. And offensive lines are important. You saw that on Saturday and Sunday as well. But you got to get pressure on the quarterback. You got to have 19 pressures on 41 dropbacks. You got to have 8 sacks. You got to force a quarterback to throw 3 interceptions. You got to sack Matt Stafford 5 times. You're going to play the Rams twice. You need to be able to reproduce that. You need to be able to put up that type of production. And so Darius Robinson, that's your draft and develop guy. And then you'll take another swing this year, maybe in the middle rounds with your day 2 pick or day 3 pick to get another draft and develop guy, right? And you have the in-house options. You need the big fish. You need the big move. That's what the Cardinals need to get this offseason.